Hey everyone! Today's discussion is with two people I admire, aspire to be, and maybe one day, if I grow up, I can be a real boy and learn a little bit more about how to be like them. If you are interested in publications and publishing, if you are a pharmacist who hates doing what they do right now and is looking for a way out, this is the conversation for you. If you are in medical affairs, if you are in pharma, you probably care about this discussion as well, because we're going to talk a little bit about branding. We're going to talk a little bit about positioning, a little bit about writing, and how it all comes together. We have two separate guests today. Our first guest is Alex Barker. He loves helping pharmacists create fulfilling careers and lives. Alex founded the Happy PharmD to provide career coaching and career development classes. He's only started since 2017, but the company's already helped 1,500 pharmacists. His best-selling book, Indispensable, A Prescription for a Fulfilling Pharmacy Career, has sold more than 4,000 copies and has helped countless pharmacists love their professions again. When he isn't working, he's with his wife and two beautiful daughters and plays Nintendo and Dungeons and Dragons and enjoys coffee and good guac, not at the same time, and reads comic books. To be fair, I did argue with him that good guac does go with Dungeons and Dragons, but that's just me. I also have with us Janan Sarwar. Janan's been with us a few different times before. She is a non-traditional pharmacist, and she's actually had significant experience publishing. She is also a pharmacy career coach and is a medical writing founder, an independent global at an independent book publishing company, Global Bookshelves International. She worked in scholarly print and digital book publication, where she published over 30 books and worked with over 300 authors and reviewers. So I'm very, very excited to have both of them with us. I'm excited to talk to them, ask them questions, and learn about their journey. So Alex, Janan, wonderful to have you guys. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming on. So let's talk a little bit about why books. Like right now, everyone's talking about movies. We're talking about podcasts. Why books?
Print is not dead. As I can show you behind, sorry that it's backwards behind me, but in general, it's really interesting. COVID showed that print book sales went up. Right. So people are reading, libraries are thriving, bookstores are gone, but Amazon is thriving. And so is Book Talk, if you're familiar with that. Are you familiar with Book Talk?
I'm not. What is Book Talk?
It's TikTok's a hashtag, over 2 billion as of, I don't know when, but 2 billion searches for Book Talk. So it's a way that it's a hashtag, but people can promote their books and direct to consumer marketing. Things have really been shaken up in the publishing industry, but books are not dead. That's my main why books.
Okay. So Alex, you obviously have a very successful career in helping pharmacists change their lives. Why are we now talking about books with them?
Well, I think at the heart of the discussion, it's about impact. I think both for ourselves and for others.
Yeah.
One could argue, books is a dying industry, but what is never going to die is expertise and authority. Books are a piece of that, and it's what changes people's minds. It's what creates persuasion, and it invites a discussion. You can look at many of current day authority figures, politicians, even celebrities that have written something and caused great impact. To be like really timely, I was just watching a little bit of the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, and we don't have to get into it. We don't want to do that. But the main cause of the we could. But the whole point of the trial is that Amber Heard wrote something, and you could argue this way and that about how it impacted, but it definitely has benefited her career in some ways, but it's also done a lot of negativity, a lot of negative things. By writing things, by putting it out in the world, you cause a really amazing ripple effect. Could be for evil, but it also can be for good. And since we're talking to pharmacists and people in healthcare, we want to help others. It's about creating something that can cause a much bigger impact. Darshan, you admitted, before we hit you did. I'll hold you to this. You admitted before we talked that, you stopped reading. So I was curious, is there a book that you have read in the past that has like significantly impacted you or changed the way you thought or think about things?
So I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to get to it. I was being slightly facetious when I talk about how I don't read books. The reason I don't read books is because I read near continuously for everything else. So I find it difficult to read fiction books. And that's not to say I don't enjoy fiction books. I just have a hard time concentrating enough to read them. So I find myself listening to the audiobooks of all of them. Like right now, I'm actually pulling up my Audible as we speak. I landed up listening to I'm listening to a couple of books on this Indian thing called the Mahabharata, and they're coming. I'm listening to those audiobooks. I just listened to the one by Andy Weir. You've got The Martian and you've got the other one. So I listened. So that I've been listening to all of them recently. I just don't have the concentration to sit and open up a book and read. There's just so much.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I don't think I've physically read a full book in 10 years, but I'm on Audible all the time. I listened to a book on my recent trip. So I get it. No way am I going to read.
We're now like plugging Audible for some odd reason. But I think the interesting part, the takeaway is the other, you asked me, why did I stop? What books sort of impacted me? And the reason I tell you that I listen to these books is that because I also write books. So I've written multiple book chapters from multiple books on everything from, drug advertising, clinical research, compounding for pharmacists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when you're writing something, one of the things I've found myself struggling with is the amount of research that goes into it. Kim Newlove's on. She's already going, I love audiobooks. So first of all, Kim,
there's a nice plug, Kim.
She's an audio voice actor, isn't she? So that's perfectly right up her alley. Yep. And that's my point. I think the fact is that when I find myself doing the research for these books, for these book chapters, that to me has been incredibly important because it changes the way you see a topic area you already think you know. And that was very, very exciting. The other thing that those books sort of impacted me with is how people see me. So what in my job as a lawyer, as a person who understands pharmacy, what I find myself struggling with often is how do I distinguish myself from the rest of the crowd? And for me, those books help me do that. It's part of the story. It's not the full story. Nothing is the quote unquote full story. But it's been quite useful, quite interesting for me when I throw that out there. It'll be something like, I'm currently a director of compliance with this thing, or I'm speaking. I have 20 years of experience as a pharmacist. And I wrote this book chapter, and all of them come together to tell a story about you. So Janan, you have a comment. You look like you were itching to say something right there.
Yeah, I mean, you're just touching on one of the many reasons that people write a book, the motivation, the why Alex was talking about, having credibility, authority to establish yourself as a known thought leader in whatever field to differentiate yourself, like you were saying. And that's maybe your why, perhaps, of why you've written and maybe why you would write. And, Alex and I have talked about another motivation, perhaps, Alex, you can share about Indispensable and the way it's growing the business in a way for the Happy PharmD.
We can't continue without Darshan. Okay, there he is.
I'm just trying to give you guys a spotlight.
Oh, okay. I just thought you were letting us take over your show, so it's now it's now Darshan Talks, hosted by Alex and Janan.
There you go.
Yeah, I think for anyone who has a business, I mean, having a book, it puts you in a different echelon. I was just in my business mastermind this morning, talking with a good friend of mine, Donald Kelly, the sales evangelist. And he's had a platform for years. He has a podcast. He's interviewed like over 300 people. And now that he has a book, though, which I'd recommend you get it if you're into sales, Sell It Like a Mango, he is all of a sudden getting speaking engagements. He is being approached by, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies to come and consult or speak and teach. You get all of a sudden recognized for what you stand for, because you have a actual book. And admittedly, when I started the Happy PharmD, I used my coaching experience of like 7 years to establish myself as an authority on a subject. But once I wrote my story down, once I shared the lessons that I had been learning and what I've seen other people do to gain success in a pharmacy career, I realized, there's a real story here that can help a lot of people. And people started treating me differently when I published those words into reality. Not everyone recognizes it, of course, but I would say by and large, the vast majority of people who read my book like it, they get something out of it, and it improves their lives. Nothing better than that.
It's interesting you say that. For me, I thought the most interesting thing about the book, and as you know, I do this interview near daily, and I've spoken to probably about 450 people already on this. But the book hits people differently, and I think the reason it hits people differently is, number one, people learn differently. But I think also this interview, when I do that, is really about hopefully learning more about Alex and learning more about Janan. What the book gives you is the opportunity to have.
I'm blushing. You can't see it because of the lighting, but I'm tickled pink. Thank you.
But I think the most difficult part initially in writing a book is to discover your voice. How do you even go about finding that voice? And Janan, you've worked with a bunch of people. So how do you help people find their voice?
Once again, I'm going to say it all starts and stems back to the intention. And, speaking of voice, both of you were sharing how audiobooks are your, the way you consume of choice, the consumption of choice for the way you're getting the.
We can't forget Kim.
We cannot forget Kim, who creates perfect audio and audiobooks. But, I think that's really interesting, the formats that are available and getting a voice. I will say, once again, it depends on whether you're writing a memoir, whether you're writing the genre that you're writing for. So, and then it all stems back to knowing your audience, knowing who you're writing to. It's really interesting. I was listening to a podcast about publishing, and they were saying how, if it is some sort of nonfiction book, people shouldn't write in the third person. You should write to the reader, especially if it's going to end up as an audiobook, because no one wants to hear 6, 8, 10 hours of of not feeling connected to who's writing to you. So there's that's a tone and that's voice, that's a part of it. But when it really starts, as far as how I help and support, and we were talking about impact. I guess my biggest thing when we talked about why books and why are we talking about this today, my favorite thing of what I've done in my whole career, as a grown-up, has been being able to connect with people who have an idea, a story, or something maybe that has been written about before, but they're seeing it in a different way, a different light. And then coaching them or talking with them to understand who is it that whose pain are you trying to solve? And are you going to be able to be this through the words that you write and the way you say it? Are you going to be able to be a pain reliever for that person that's listening? Or are you just going to be a vitamin? And if you're a vitamin...
Pain reliever versus vitamins, okay.
Yeah,
We've got pharmacists on here. I already have some opinions about pain reliever versus vitamin, but keep going.
I'll get to my point. My point being that, vitamins are important, but it may not solve that particular issue for the person. You can take it, but they may not buy it. And so going back to why a book versus podcast, movies, TV, YouTube, blogs. We are in this instant world, right? We're in this instant world. I can go live right now and live stream on Instagram the fact that you're live streaming us right now. Like, we could do that. That would be weird, but I could do that. But with a book, things do suddenly slow down. There is that, whether you're the author, and from people here listening, probably, or the writer, you know, it is not as instant. You have to be a little more thoughtful. Darshan, you mentioned research. You have to do the research. You're about to put something out there. You don't want it to be wrong. You don't want to steal from anyone. You don't want plagiarism. There's a lot of thoughtfulness. And, you know, the rest of the process, the whole publication process it's not as instant. And I think there is still a weight to that. Now, I won't get into it, but we can, if anyone has questions from the audience as well, about self-publishing versus traditional publishing, because now you can actually very quickly take a PDF or take a book or just mind dump what you want to say and publish it. You can. And people, though, are getting smarter, and whether it's the consumer or the author. So there's a lot of changes, I guess I'm saying, but I think my main point to share is that things slow down a little bit when it comes to books, and that helps that authority building. And
I mean, I agree with you 100%. The part I struggle with is the slowdown part of it, because my attention, I have some version of ADHD. I've never been diagnosed, but I definitely have some version of ADHD. And the idea of sitting there and focusing for 8, 10, 15 hours to just do research on something that maybe 3 paragraphs in your book exhausts me mentally. Having said that, it is, as you put it, critical, because in the end, it's going to be there forever. So unlike a blog, unlike a podcast where you can go, I don't like it, I'm going to pull it down. A book's there. So it's the diamonds of the reading industry. A diamond is forever and a book is forever. So, so Alex, when you wrote your book, why did you do it? And was the experience what you expected it would be?
I think it kind of goes back to your previous question about finding your voice. Mm-hmm. What motivated me to write my book was the very simple idea of creating authority and credibility. I thought, you know what, if I have a book in my hands, it will somehow help me and my business and my life goals. And I think my story will help others. I definitely don't want to ignore the selfish part of me, right? You know, we all enjoy ice cream, right? I wanted to help myself very clearly. But as I started writing it, I spent about a solid 2, maybe 3 weeks just kind of throwing up on paper. Really ugly draft, ugly stuff. Yeah, there was research. The idea of spending 8 hours to research an idea sounds a little bit excessive for writing a book. That sounds more like you're writing a research paper. I did not do that. I did research, but not in like 8 hours a day. But as I wrote, I got to a point where I felt stuck. And I just felt like I didn't have any more gas in the tank. It was very weird. And I talked with a friend about it, and he encouraged me to, why don't you just write about the feeling and about this book? And I was like, okay. And what came out of that writing session was essentially the first chapter of my book, which is I'm a terrible pharmacist. Right. And I wrote down, I'm sorry?
We've all had that experience. I remember that feeling, right, sitting in a hospital going, these people are so much smarter than me. What am I doing here?
Yeah. And admittedly, I felt like if I write the things I'm going to say, I'm afraid everyone will think that I'm stupid. I'm not a good pharmacist.
Yeah.
And through that writing exercise, I was just able to realize, you know what? I feel this way. I think other people probably feel the same way. And I don't know of anyone that's ever said this audibly out loud in this way. And that one exercise was like, it totally changed the tone of my book. It helped me find the voice of it. It helped me understand this is the message of what my book is really about. It's helping people who care for others come to terms with their desires, their wants, and realize, you know what, if I take care of myself, I can better take care of other people. So I would say, I don't know if I answered your question, but it felt like a really important point to make, because it was hard. Like, after writing for 3 weeks for hours each day, and I came to that point where I was like, oh, I don't think this is a good book anymore. I think this is dumb.
Right.
But that one transformational exercise just really helped me push through and create the published book that I have today.
So, Janan, when you've dealt with this self-doubt, this this idea, because all these authors have come to you, and we've all sort of been like, well, I've never worked with you in that capacity, but we, as an author, I know that feeling of, do I even know what I'm talking about? And then starting to put pen to paper, and eventually getting to a point. For me, this was the point where I went, yeah, this author has no idea what they're talking about. I know what I'm reading. I know what I'm looking at. They don't know what they're talking about. But that entire full circle of I'm a moron to they're a moron is, and I don't know if that's politically correct anymore, but I'll work on that part soon, I promise.
Yeah.
But how do you help people cross that chasm?
Yeah, so there perhaps are different things that are limiting them. Like you were saying, looking to see, is this perfection? Am I trying to get something that's perfect? And seeking perfection sometimes holds us back. Maybe their idea was too narrow. That sometimes, and you truly run out of things to be novel or write about.
Right.
And that's a really fun exercise itself, to say, is this idea worth being a book? I know we're talking about publishing a book, but maybe not. Maybe it should be a blog. Maybe someone's idea out there should be a blog. Like, that's the other thing. That's the other consideration that is very important to know. When is my idea viable? Is it important? Are people going to buy it? Is it worth doing? And if so you do need someone to listen to you. Hopefully, if it's in the publishing industry, someone has already reviewed what's called a book proposal. Yeah, go ahead, Alex. Tell me what you.
I was just going to contribute. That's how Stephanie Meyers got it big with Twilight, right? It was just a blog.
Yeah.
Right? It was like fan fiction. Yeah. Well, I feel like it was fan fiction of something else, and she turned it into its own thing.
No, you're thinking of 50 Shades of Grey.
Okay, there you go. Well,
that's what
I mean, the same smut, right? I mean, by the way, if you do want a good laugh, especially for any men out there, middle-aged men like myself, Twilight is a hilarious comedy. I highly recommend it. I laughed the entire movie. Great film.
Which one? Did you
first
then
one.
see Twilight 2 and Twilight 3?
No, I didn't see the rest. I only saw the first one, and it was just like a work of art. Like, I really enjoyed Twilight. But my main point was, though, she just wrote the 50 Shades of Grey gal is the one who wrote it as a blog, and it became this crazy book where she sold millions and millions of copies. So you never know what you can end up creating. Watch, Janan. Janan, you're going to inspire the next generation of you know what? Never mind. I'm not going to say that joke publicly. Sorry.
So I have a question, though. When you talk about pharmacists and you talk about people in pharma and they're talking about books, are we talking about people writing books that are nonfiction, like autobiographies and the like? Are we talking about them writing how-to books? Are we talking about them writing how to be a better pharmacist, or fiction? Like, what exactly are we talking about? Because there's so much you could cover. So, Janan, we'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, you see behind me, as I mentioned, I have a variety of books. The colorful ones are my children's books. they're picture books and up. There's Harry Potter back there as well. The books up here are like pharmacy textbooks. Some of them are how-to, some of them are exam reviews, some of them are, I've got cookbooks back there, right? And again, it really depends on what you're interested in. What's your intention? I'm going to repeat myself, right? But it's, what is it that you as an individual who's listening here, what is it that you want to be your legacy? We were talking about best-selling books. We were saying the 2 reasons for you two, why you were writing. So Alex, it was building his business and having maybe something that could be even like a loss leader or like something that you give away, right? To get people in the door. That's how indispensable could have been for Alex. And for Darshan, you were saying it was authority building, thought leadership. Well, for me, I like my book. Of course, I'm working on a book with Alex as well, but my book ideas that I've had are more for just storytelling, and it could be fiction, it could be nonfiction, but sharing a story. So, for some, we could, your question of, for pharmacists, what is it that they need to do? Again, it depends on their goals. If someone is trying to be able to share something that's really critical and important that was unique to them, maybe it is more like a memoir that then, someone else reads and can really relate to. And again, it could end up in a million possibilities. And then I know pharmacists that have written children's books, and we've actually had comments in Alex and I, as we've posted different things about what we're working on, a workshop. People have said that they've got a fantasy novel or a children's book that they really want to put out in the world, whether it's about pharmacists or just about something they care about. So it's really up to the person. That's my opinion.
So here's a question from Kim, and this will be the last question because this time went by really, really quickly. But here's the question that she had. Thanks for the shout out. There's a power in having a voice and using it. That's until you hear my voice. My voice sucks. So to be fair, you need a better voice. But can you talk about how people now record themselves talking, reduce it to writing with AI, Otter, etc., and then creating a printed book and maybe the audio book too? Have you had much experience with the writing process itself, Janan? I mean, for me, I know that was not something I had when I was writing the original versions of some of the book chapters I worked on. But I know that that's definitely the process I use now, because putting it all down, jotting it all down is much more difficult otherwise. So is this the process people are using? If yes, what are some suggested improvements? If not, what are some suggested improvements?
Yeah, so this is an excellent method, and I know Alex has used it. I've used it for different things as well. Otter AI, using Google Docs. Google Docs has a way to be able to capture your audio. There are other really easy transcription services where you can just record yourself, or even just using voice memos on your phone and recording and having an idea of what you want to do. These are all viable options. It is really helpful. It makes the process faster. If you are on the go and you're not able to sit down and write, or you're really in the zone, maybe you watch something, you read something, and you want to then translate that into you've digested it, then it actually, one of the main reasons I have referred it to people that have been authors working with me is so that there's a decreased risk of plagiarism, really, so that you're honestly taking something you listen to or your thoughts and you're putting it into your own words. And that really decreases that risk. But Alex, I know you've actually used a lot of these softwares. Please share.
What is your process?
Oh, it's probably way more unorganized and creative. I use text to speech a lot. So I've used Google Docs, which has a free tool, text to speech, where I'm just talking, and it's a garbled mess. It's not always intelligible. But the important part for me in my writing process is that I am first creative and then I edit later. I think it's really important to adopt that mindset and even not over prepare by researching before you write something. And the reason why is because it's really easy to pretend like you're writing an email, and you write and then you edit yourself and you're like, oh, don't say that word. This person will misinterpret what I'm saying. I need to write it like this. Just throw up your idea and then come to it back later with a clean mind, a fresh mind, a good night's sleep, and then start crafting it from there. That's really my process with my social media content, my book content. I wouldn't call it rocket science. And it's a lot of trying and experimenting with things. Janan knows this, that we try a lot of different things for my business, and we throw out a lot of different ideas, and we try to take the lessons that we've learned for what works well and do more of those things versus the things that are stinkers. So that's really my journey, my process.
And obviously, I just want to add, Jesse also has a recommendation that Microsoft Word has a great text-to-speech translation as well. We can literally keep going on about this for at least the next 3 hours without even blinking. So maybe that just means you guys need to come back. But this was amazing. Jackie also has a comment. It's so hard to just brain dump and not edit. Turns out I'm sloppy. I can do the brain dump without editing, at least at that time. But some people I can see struggling with that a little bit more than I do. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting process. Okay, so before we go, a couple of things to reiterate for people. Janan, how can people reach you?
I think I am the only Janan Sarwar that I know of on LinkedIn. So Darshan has put my link in the chat. So find me there. Love to connect.
And Alex, how can people reach you?
I have a much more boring name. You can find me on LinkedIn, Alex Barker, PharmD. Happy to connect. Happy to have a conversation.
Very, very cool. And ladies first, Janan, what would be your parting words for today?
So, we have this book workshop Alex and I have been working on it's actually tomorrow, Wednesday, the 25th, in the evening. It's taken some time. We've put together some really interesting things, including some of the top questions that I've received over the years. Like, speaking of when you're saying audio, like people ask about hiring ghostwriters, or people ask about trends and roadblocks and different things that we've learned in the co-authoring or publishing side and writing side. So if you're interested, reach out to either one of us. I think, the link is here. We'd really love to share and get more questions. And that's
Janan, you're too humble. How many books have you published in your career?
I've been a part of the publishing of over 30 books. And actually, no, there's more. Since I've started my own publishing company for 2022, I've published, I will be publishing by the end of this year, four books. So it's pretty exciting.
With your own company, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to be sharing a lot of those thoughts, lessons learned, and shortcuts for people to use in that mini workshop. You're going to have a publishing plan by the end of it. And you're going to know what roadblocks you're going to run into, how to overcome them. It's going to be a blast. And we have lots of extra goodies as well to help you, from marketing your book to planning it, outlining it. It's going to be fun. Okay. And the fact that I somehow roped in Janan Sarwar to help me with this is like, it's a miracle, and it's going to be a blast. So I highly recommend you hang out with us. It's live next week, Wednesday,
tomorrow.
8. Oh, it's tomorrow. Oh yeah. It's tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, right?
I think it's 8:30, but go to the link. Let's go to the link. But yeah,
the link says what time. We would love for you to be there. It'll be live, but of course it'll be recorded as well. Amazing. Yeah, don't trust with me with dates. I think that's the lesson here for this podcast.
I'm gonna throw the link on. You should be able to go to YouTube and actually see this link. Some people on LinkedIn should be able to see it as well. So it's already on. If you go to YouTube, you'll be able to find it as well. So you can click there, go for it. For those people who are just listening to it, it's happy-pharmd.teachable.com/p/best-sellers-book-workshop. Because
we made it so hard for you. That is a silly link. Just, I hope you can click it.
Next time we'll use links. But there we go.
Gracious.
Everyone, this was amazing having you guys on. Can't wait to have you on again soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.